And I'd like to welcome you all to this final panel. My name is Riddy Lucas, and I teach at New York University. Just to talk about the format for today, I'm going to introduce both of our speakers up front, and then we'll have both presentations, and then each presentation will be about 20-25 minutes, and then we will open it up to a larger Q&A, so that we can also have where questions can be directed at individual speakers, but also hopefully generate a conversation across the presentations. So I'll begin by introducing our first speaker, Sara Liao, who is Assistant Professor of Media Studies in the Belisario College of Communications at Pennsylvania State University in the US. With interests in feminist media studies, cultural studies, digital media, globalization, and East Asian popular culture, she has published in numerous journals such as Signs, International Journal of Communication, Communication, Culture, and Critique, and the Chinese Journal of Communication, and also has a book entitled Fashioning China, Precarious Creativity and Women Designers in Shanzai Culture, which was published by Pluto Press in 2020. So we'll begin with Sara, and the title of her presentation is Contentious Politics, Digital Media and Transnational Feminist Activism. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Riddy, for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay. So hello, everyone, again. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to share my research and thoughts on digital feminism, transnational feminism in China. And today, I'm going to share is something from my ongoing project on feminist activism in China. The materials and analysis come from my years of participant observation and interviews with informants who practice feminism or engage in various gender events, both in and outside China. And let me just begin or start with a very recent case. In the early morning of Friday, June 10th, a group of men brutally attacked several women in a barbecue restaurant in Tangshan, Hebei province in China. From the leaked surveillance footage, we can see a man was rejected by a woman when he approached her and put a hand on her back. So he slapped a woman and the woman fought back. This incident soon escalated when other men joined the fight, later dragging the woman and her dining partners outside the restaurant and violently beating them up. So the footage was soon spread virally online, immediately sparking a huge public outrage and intense debate about gender violence that still lasted until now. The police intervened and there was 9 attackers was arrested. However, the state media, those mainstream media, they tried very hard to displace the public discussion on gender violence with one that's emphasized on public safety on the threat by criminal guns. And also social media platforms participated to downplay the buzz around this issue. However, gender remains a common lexicon when referring to this case, for good or bad. And contentious discussions once again point to the misogynistic, sexist, and patriarchal digital culture in China. So I want to use this case to serve as an entry point, which can help us look at the knotted relationship between the public, the media market, digital technology, then the state in shaping and changing the feminist landscape in China. To begin with, China has gone through 40 years of reform and opening up, which led fast economic growth and also resulted in multiple cultural and techno-social transformation, which bring durable imprints in gender politics. We can see a graphic on the right in this PowerPoint that shows some basic facts about gender in China. The recent decade has witnessed a surge of gender-related policies, phenomena, events, discussions. Those topics including leftover women, anti-sexual harassment, gender-based work discrimination, gender morale and marriage practices across lines of class and rural-urban divides, toxic masculinity, and also stigmatization of feminism. All of them come in a variety of media genres and in different media platforms. Commercial media are the trailblazer in Chinese market reform to introduce gender into their content, first to captivate audience and to increase ratings for their profits. On the one hand, we can see such practices broaden the scope of social discussion on various phenomena related to gender. But on the other, it also confines the gender topics and content to commercial logics and monetization of audience participation and passion. The development of technologies, especially those on social medias, best illustrates this double effects. At the very beginning, feminists in China, they see the power of the internet and digital media. They see its wide reach, the decentered mobilizing practices, and the democratic potentials. So we see roughly from 2012, there was a loose network of young feminists and college students. They initiated many creative campaigns in the street to advocate for feminist purposes and share those activities via social media. Their novel form of using performing arts to address gender issues like domestic violence, like sexual harassment in public spaces has gained tremendous public attention, both in the mainstream media and on digital media platforms. These young feminists and college students self-identified as Youth Feminist Action School. Their activities have encouraged and mobilized other young people to speak up and act, and cultivated more networks of feminists and activists who voluntarily contribute to activities for the gender cause. The internet are key resources for their visibility and mobilization at the very beginning. As observed by many, the rise of grassroots feminists has its unique characteristics that separated them from previous state-led NGOs' work on gender equality. They do not rely on institutional resources to carry out gender campaigns. Their heavy reliance on digital networks also expands their reach to a more international audience, particularly those Chinese activists, scholars, and students who study and live abroad, which, as I will illustrate later, in turn also help to increase the visibility of Chinese feminist activism domestically and globally. Then the 2018 MeToo movement in China, perhaps it's the one of the moments that highly exemplifies the strategies that feminist activism used to make their voices heard by engaging with global discourse and movement of anti-sexual violence. The Chinese MeToo has started on January 1st, 2018, when an overseas academic called Luo Xixi accused her former advisor, Chen Xiaowu, at Beihang University sexually harassed her through a post widely circulated on social media. So more and more people stood up and shared their own MeToo stories online. And sexual violence cases have been exposed from higher education to non-government organizations to media industries, all of them aiming to demonstrate the magnitude of the problem. The alliances and networks young feminists built through the years of work have also helped to make MeToo in China largely visible to the international audience. Many feminists have spread the word and shared the MeToo stories to blocked sites in China, such as Facebook and Twitter. They also accepted interviews from foreign media to comment on what was going on. The outbreak of those cases was concentrated in July and early August in 2018, but soon cramped. There was massive deletion of MeToo stories online. Mainstream media were also silenced to cover any sexual harassment allegation. Later on, scattered cases of sexual harassment have still caught public attention and become a hot topic, but only for a short period of time. Then we enter into the era of pandemic, a time when gender issues have been constantly hit the headline, sparking not only heated discussions, but intensified contention and even antagonism in the public space. For example, at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, the needs of women paramedics have been highlighted when the social media user Liao and others launched a campaign of donating sanitary pads to women medics. These activities promoted heated online discussion on gender problems during the pandemics, including those uneven media coverage of genders when women paramedics are disproportionately covered, and things related to period poverty, menstruation taboos, and public shaming. Public culture continued to be the battlefield of gender issues. In late 2020, one stand-up comedian called Yang Li provoked much hype and buzz when she gave her sarcastic gimmick, saying that why men look so average yet can be so confident during an online gig. The punchline that told jokes about men and their egos, quite a new term called 普信男 in the public lexicon. Pushbacks from men were soon to come. Some even offered a sample letter to send to state regulators, accusing Yang of insulting men and inciting hatred. Subsequent controversials were so many surrounding supporters and critics of Yang, with a fulcrum of the debates between technomanosphere and Miss NG. Moreover, sexual violence resurfaced to be a key topic that connects with broader social issues, such as human trafficking, mental health of rural women, severe mistreatment, and reproductive rights. Earlier this year, a woman of 8 children was found in a viral video featuring a man just his children while his wife with messy hair, muddy cheeks, and no shoes during winter is chained by him to a wall in a filthy hut. An outpouring of public rage immediately made the event top the social media Weibo's trendy topics and also sustained its heated discussion for months. Particularly, this event was unfolded during the already controversial 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, with people demanding investigations and proper answers despite increasingly censored and politically sensitive online space in China. This highly visible and heated debated issues and incidences renewed the attention of feminism and gender politics, witnessed the boom of diverse groups and efforts made to address those issues, while also giving rise to rampant misogynistic discourses, sexist culture, and coordinated efforts of witch hunting and online trolling against women. Over the years, we can see the feminist practices and gender discussion have gone through many changes in China. Feminist activism started with action-based practices and gained much visibility online. It has become multidimensional networks with ruptures and divisions among feminists, among the public, and between feminists and the rest of the public. The visibility brought by early year feminist digital practices first sought to garner global attention and address domestic gender problems, now increasingly shift to build up multiple transnational networks, facilitated by the mobility of feminists and the affordances of digital technologies. The current discursive space for gender in China is contentious than ever before, with accumulated critiques toward digital economy, which profit from controversial gender buzz. Here, I want to highlight 3 nodal points for these changes. First of all, most of the feminist campaigns and activities in China are deeply rooted in the society with its unique context. And feminists continuously renew their strategies, adapt their practices to seek justice within the state system. The government, the state itself, has become increasingly resilient as well to suppress progressive politics, leading the public to discredit feminist activism by stigmatizing participants, associate them with foreign hostile forces that would threaten China's stability. Meanwhile, it also co-opts media platforms and utilizes digital technology for its own purpose of propaganda and surveillance to roll out state-sanctioned discourses on gender and try to monopolize the epistemic rights. To seek justice within the state system, feminists and gender-conscious citizens have to adjust their strategies to work around those institutional limitations. For example, the 2 consultations for the proposed revision to a law addressing women's rights protection garnered over 80,000 people to contribute over 300,000 pieces of opinions and suggestions to the law amendment in the first half year of this year. Online mobilization and awareness raising through social media have largely facilitated the participation and contribution. In addition, more and more people create diverse content in textual audio-visual formats and circulate them via different ways, such as podcast, personal blogs, private gathering, legal consultation, reading clubs, online workshops and seminars to discuss and comment on gender-related issues. While not all of these efforts will result in progressive changes in policy, in social environment, and cultural values, these practices nonetheless seek spaces within the state to continue the feminist struggle and proliferate voices surrounding gender issues. The second point that is closely tied to the state apparatus of gender politics is the market, the capital, especially those on digital media. Digital media such as the micro-blogging site Weibo and others have started to adapt their business model a few years ago to cultivate various market segmentations according to topics like fashion, beauty, relationship, career, cultures, social issues, etc. The result of these years of development and commercialization helped many social media sites build up a large women audience base where women are both the content contributors and targeted consumers. Content creators as social media influencers are highly encouraged by such a business model. Many of those internet influencers, women and men, embrace the entrepreneurial spirits, often carry out their messages online for a specific audience. Some of them even with gender consciousness, for good or bad. Many corporate brands also take advantage of the large women audience base and launched campaigns such as those challenging menstrual taboo and body shaming to address women's lived experiences of sexism and misogyny. The media environment is becoming increasingly welcoming to women and women-centered content. The business effort sells a series of empowerment narrative to women and encourage them to be confident and independent. Yet the commercial efforts to address these gender problems or issues navigates in a political sensitive environment where gender problems and feminist politics have been financed into commercial efforts to promote consumption. And the business and the platforms, those brands are benefit from it. More importantly, such efforts are only confining to certain social groups of women and girls, which largely ignores or exclude the majority of women in rural areas, migrant women, women ethnic groups, and other marginalized communities. In addition, those women-centered topics and visibility, and even the mainstreaming of women's voice on media platforms do not mean that those platforms are supportive to feminist movement or taking any real actions to promote gender equality or justice. To the contrary, operating in a society where the state dictates and propagates its own agenda, the commercialization of media and its proliferation of popular events of gender is in coalescence with the patriarchal state gender politics. So the third point to the shifting gender dynamic in China is the strengthening of transnational networks of feminist activism. In the past decade, there was a surge of Chinese pursuing higher education in the Western world. Many of the young feminists I have contacted with have somewhat overseas experiences, either as an exchange student or going to grad school or a visiting fellow or an artist in residence. Wherever they go, they eagerly explore local Chinese feminist networks or create them, organizing workshops and launching campaigns to cultivate feminist consciousness, especially among Chinese students. Some of my informants truly believe that the overseas Chinese students are the feminists and the activists to be once they graduate, once they equipped with the theories and can practice, then they come back and work in China to really engage with the feminist struggle in domestic places. Feminist issues in China are also increasingly visible in academic publications, conferences, workshops, seminars, or those kind of presentations. More and more overseas Chinese activists, students, and scholars are making alliances to advocate for gender cause, which increase the visibility of feminist activism. There are huge resources and archives that collected and arranged by volunteers on GitHub, in university libraries, and in other open access platforms, which are valuable public data to understand the ongoing feminist struggle in China. The transnational feminist networks provide pressure space to create, circulate, and archive important gender-related information and feminist events that are otherwise lost in the domestic arena, tightly oversighted by the state market nexus. So case in point is the MeToo story of the tennis player Peng Shuai. On November the 2nd last year, Peng posted on Weibo about her being sexually abused by the former vice premier of China, Zhang Gaoli. The post soon got deleted and numerous searches related to the incidents got censored, creating a lot of sensitive words and censored topics in a short period of time. Many social media accounts have been suspended due to their discussion of the incidents, even just tangentially. Contrary to the forced silence in the digital space in China, the internet public outside China have shown great energy and passion in discussing the issues, circulating censored information and showing enormous empathy toward Peng. We see here there are different international news coverage, social media discussions on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, and there's even a supporting message bullet board on pallets. The effort of making this incident visible and carving spaces for further discussion on gender violence and sexual harassment culture, as well as political corruption are largely sustained by overseas Chinese feminists and activists. I hope the above discussion will give you a better idea of how feminist practices and activism have shifted and adapted to the changing environment buttressed by a state market nexus in China. Over the years, with the prevailing neoconservative social discourse, putting emphasis on nationalism, feminism, family, and reproduction, women are subjected to state regulation via a series of policies and discourses, which increasingly shrink the space of women-centered discussion, limiting topic to some safe harbors like fashion, beauty, relation, family, maternity, and parenting that can easily link with commercialization on platforms. Parallelly, emerging voices of the so-called militant feminism, extreme feminism, or pink feminism also gained much momentum, furthering the division among Chinese feminist circles and increasing the contentious discussion in the online space. Official media as state's mouthpiece are actively setting public agenda in gender issues, leading public to stigmatize feminism as a school of thoughts, as a radical discourse against patriarchy, and as social practices to counter sexism, discrimination, and misogyny. The profit-driven media, while providing space for topics related to gender and commercialize the attention to generate profits from their large women audience base, they are also operate within state structure, largely complicit in supporting state-sanctioned gender discourses and implicitly driving traffic for misogyny and anti-feminism. Transnational feminist networks show some promises outside the state market nexus when increasing visibility of Chinese overseas activists, students, and scholars bring the feminist struggle to the global public arena and cultivating space for further discussion and collective efforts that can push for changes. While digital platforms play a central role in Chinese feminists' interaction and information sharing, community building, political mobilization, and participation in public life, these same platforms are simultaneously providing new and efficient mechanisms for abusive usage that can cause social backlash to gender course and feminist politics. As elsewhere in the world, activities such as doxing, stalking, trolling, launching coordinated harassment campaigns, and even distributing intimate images without consent are intensified in China's online space to reinforce the toxic culture of misogyny, patriarchy, and sexism on those digital platforms. So the platforms themselves are not only serving as sites of interrogation, the intersectional oppressions on gender politics in China, but itself is a source of oppression. They are one of those axes we should look at to review the power relations. These forces co-construct and constantly shape gender politics and feminist activism in contemporary China's mediascape. This is pretty much what I want to share today. And here is a list of selected references. I will stop here and look forward for your comments and suggestions. Thank you.